This is a presentation that is going to change the way that you think about technology and its potentials for the future, okay? Now, so many of us think about technology, we think about these radical divides. So we've got the organic over here, and we've got technology really far away at the other end of that spectrum. Or as designers, we think about the idealized, pure material that we want to work with. And if it's somehow tainted with a bit of technology, then somehow it belongs to a completely different camp. And if we do come across a form that's completely natural, then we somehow think that it must be completely incompatible with the high-tech ambitions of the modern human, right? So what I'd like to do tonight is show you that technology has space within modern concepts of sustainability, and it can actually add a lot of benefits. I run a consultancy business where I advise brands on how to innovate, actually, with advanced materials, or how to embrace emerging technologies. So when fashion brands come knocking at my door, they want to get a piece of wearable technology, right? So I'm there to advise them on that. But at the same time, there's a bit of reluctance there because they're afraid that if they do actually introduce their consumers to wearable technology, that it's going to somehow compromise the commitment to sustainability that they've made and that the consumers are invested in. So over the years, I've had success in some cases with helping brands somehow bridge this divide and understanding that sustainability and technology can actually coexist as one single form. But first, allow me to take you into the weird and wonderful world of the amoeba. So this is a branch of synthetic biology where they're creating, sort of completely technologized or synthetic substances and introducing the single-celled amoeba. And what the little amoeba do is they get really high on these nutrients they're being fed, and they start to multiply. And as they do that, they form membranes. And the thinking is that these membranes will emerge as a living, breathing biomaterial. Now, some people get off on amoeba. For me, bacteria is where it's at. Now, the thing that I like about bacteria is when they start to multiply, they really are a collective. They form these membranes, and bacteria are very smart, and, they're very family-loving. So anytime there's a rupture in their membrane, they know to automatically start to multiply in a way that's actually going to repair or, sort of bridge that gap. So as an example of a biological material, you can't really go wrong with this stuff. It doesn't matter if it gets ripped apart or torn. It's actually going to, by the time you wake up the next morning or by the time you get home from the party, the holes in your clothing will be mended. Now, we know, it doesn't matter how much we wash, what sort of personal hygiene we have. We know that our bodies are covered with all kinds of fungi and bacteria and stuff like that. This designer from Austria, Sonja Bommel, has come up with a kind of conceptual prototype for the way that we could introduce different types of materials or even different types of fibers onto the human body and potentially form something like socks, like underwear, like a kind of grow your own base layer. And you don't even need to take it off when you're finished. You just jump into the shower, and it washes down the drain and biodegrades. Now, mushrooms, another type of fungus, have been successfully used to create different types of packaging. You put them in a mold, you spray water on it, mushrooms do what they like doing, and they create the packaging, in this case, for a wine bottle. But what if we take it a step further, and it becomes a shoe form, or a handbag, or a piece of luggage, or maybe some kind of item, you want to travel light, you need that bag to take you to the destination, you're going to dump it there, let it biodegrade, and then head back home. A French designer who's been living in London for a long time called Carole Colette is actually a textile practitioner, and she's done a lot of collaborative projects with scientists and people that do genetically modified crops. So she's one of the sort of main people pioneering the synthetic biology area. So she thinks that for whatever reason, she has some experience of strawberry plants. You're looking at a strawberry plant here. And she thinks that through genetic modification, that the strawberry plant or any other plant can eventually be modified to create, a sort of fashion detail. In this case, lace that you could actually pull out of the earth, shake the dirt off, and sew it onto a garment. And she's got this vision for farming fashion. So you used more advanced synthetic biology technology, and you start to create seeds that will, sort of sprout. It's kind of hard for me to imagine, harvesting a jacket, putting it on. But if you think about, sort of fibers that, if you could genetically modify them in ways that will make them colored, will give them, sort of shiny properties, things like that, then you can start to see there's a lot of potential in this area. I love it. Then Daisy Ginsburg, who is a student of hers, is coming up with a concept that, look, we're just going to, sort of find certain types of vegetables that have properties we want to work with. This is an aubergine. And we're going to make the appropriate products. So I don't believe that in the next 100 years we're going to be able to genetically modify an aubergine to be a shoe or something like that. I mean, if we do, I'm not going to eat it. But if you think about the sort of spongy qualities that the aubergine has, it could potentially be a disposable liner for a sports shoe, right? You grow it, harvest it, you wear it, it's very, very comfortable, and at the end of the day, you just chuck it out on the compost heap. Biomimicry, another fascinating area within this, an area that was actually invented and pioneered by a journalist called Janine Benays. Janine started talking about biomarkers, and you may also hear these referred to as microtags. So every plant, every organism, everything that is a complex-celled animal or plant has these sort of tags. And once you become familiar with these tags, you can actually identify, you don't need information about the plant. The biomarkers will tell you what species it belongs to. Now, what's interesting about these biomarkers, these are completely synthetic, is that if you can actually bond these to the fibers in the labs, you don't necessarily need to grow those fibers, you can actually start to introduce code to the fiber. So yes, you can authenticate the fiber, but all that kind of annoying information that you have in the sort of tags, which I always cut out because they start to make me itch. The types of materials, when it was produced, who made it, you could encode into the fibers. So you've got like an invisible way of putting extra information into the garment that you just find out when you want to scan it. Are there people here that get annoyed having to throw away their favorite pair of jeans because the knees have gone baggy, or sort of the thighs have become too big, or something like that? Well, with nanotechnology, these twisting nanofibers actually introduce an unprecedented degree of elasticity that we haven't seen in materials before. And these are kind of like a nano form of Velcro, but they don't have the same kind of contact. What they do is they actually, are programmed to recognize each other and bond with each other. And when they pull apart, they go back together immediately. Kind of like a magnetic principle, but there's no magnetism involved. So a defining characteristic of the design of our age is integrated lighting, and sort of face it, that's here to stay. Now, integrated lighting requires a power source or batteries. Something's got to make it light up. It's sustainable in some ways, but sort of still not in others. And the big question now is, what's actually going to provide the power source? So let's think about the value of using bioluminescent materials. Here you see plankton that have gathered on the shore in New Zealand, but bioluminescence exists in nature in fireflies, in different types of insects. Further out in the ocean, the sort of jellyfish are blinking with each other during mating season. So going back to synthetic biology now, they're looking for ways that they can understand how these chemical signals in nature are going to actually be able to be replicated in product design. Another cool approach to this is looking at photocrystal fibers. These fibers are really incredible because each one has a different kind of structure or architecture. Now, the specific architecture of this fiber is actually something that can conduct a single color wave band of light. Here you see they're actually being exposed to white light. And what it does is they, sort of start to separate the light into these colored wave bands, and that's what they produce. The way that this works in practice is that it can, not only create this beautiful luminescence in a textile, but it can also add different colors. I mean, it's always interesting to, sort of think about the healing properties of nature. So this is a project that Philips Design in the Netherlands have been working on that looks at the properties of the blue waveband spectrum in light to actually be an effective method of pain relief, which is being used in this glove here. Something that's going to treat a baby that's got a skin condition, or potentially, you've got a bad back or something like that, provide a kind of pain relief there as well. Now, it's kind of normal when people say that they've got a specialism in fashion or technology, that they call themselves a wearable technology specialist or a specialist in sustainability. I personally don't think I'm either, but I really see the value of bringing these two areas together so they can both be taken forward in a meaningful way. So the dress that you're looking at now is made from these materials called Efoils. They don't behave like normal fabrics. What they do is they are controlled by the temperature of the body. The idea here is that the Efoils can just be kind of, as you see here, opaque on the body. But once the temperature of the skin increases, the sort of heartbeat goes up, then they will actually start to, sort of become transparent. Now, I really like this idea that the technology we wear doesn't need an external power source. It doesn't even need sunlight. It just needs to rely on body heat or body reaction to actually make it perform. The interesting thing about this is it takes us into an area called emotional sensing, where battery-controlled technology is actually measuring the heartbeat, the perspiration, the breathing of the wearer. And what it's doing, it's sort of programmed to identify the different conditions associated with being in love, with being afraid, or with being angry, and it causes the clothes to react accordingly. So when I think about the sort of future of all of this, sort of talking to product designers, to material specialists, people working with sustainability, the big problem is that there's all this material that we just want to get rid of, that we just don't want to have around us. So when I think about sort of future paradigms of sustainability, I think about sort of being able to live in harmony with nature without extracting materials from nature. Now, one of the things that has shown me that I'm on the right track here in this idea of mine is thinking about robots. We grew up with this idea that the robots of the future are going to be humanoid and, we can boss them around and they're going to do all these things for us. But, the robots of the future are not going to be humanoid. Reasons for this is that there are huge ethical issues around artificial intelligence and, lots of things around robots. Another significant trend right now is, to be more active, to get people on their feet. One of my students in the Netherlands says sitting is the new smoking, you shouldn't do it. And actually, when I hang out with my colleagues in Germany, we have these marathon meetings. I've never seen anything like it. And we all stand around these bar tables like that. And it's really uncouth to lean on it. You've got to, kind of stand there and try to pretend that you're comfortable. So the robots of the future are going to be these wearable devices, like this prototype glove, that you put it on when you've got to do some heavy lifting. You're carrying your shopping all the way home from the supermarket or something like this, and it'll be intelligent. So as it starts to constrict, it will know that it's got to give you a boost of energy to help you pick up that heavy item. Conrad Atton in Australia was very interested, actually fascinated with the idea of self-assembly light particles. Self-assembly particles now can recognize different conditions around them. So they recognize up, down, left, right, and they're programmed to actually, sort of recognize that I need to get on this side of the particle beside me. And that's how they create these chains that will eventually create products. So he's saying, and this, when he explained this to me, a light bulb went off. Maybe this is going to be the fashion of the future. Maybe you just have that dress which is made out of photons of light, and it's somehow programmed so that when you're ready to take it off, it just dissipates. Studio XO in England are fascinated by this self-assembly particle technology, but their vision for this is that you would have like something similar to a can of aerosol, and when you're ready to put on your dress for the party that night, you pop the top off, and the particles come out and they create a dress around you. So I'd like to conclude with showing you their vision for how that can happen. Thank you so much for your attention tonight. I've really enjoyed it. Great audience.